Far at the western edge of the world, where the light gives up long before the land does, a valley lies, breathing in the dark. It has never once seen the sun. No dawn has ever climbed its walls. No noon has ever stood above it. No evening has ever reddened its stones. And yet it is not black there, not blind, not empty. It rests instead inside a soft and endless dusk, the color of closed eyelids, the color you are seeing now if your eyes have already fallen shut. And it breathes slowly, the way a sleeping animal breathes. Its mists rising and settling, as though the whole hollow of the earth were an enormous chest at rest. The old poet said this was the country of the Cimmerians, a people wrapped forever in cloud and shadow at the far rim of the ocean. And they said it not with fear, but with a kind of longing, because somewhere inside that dusk, folded into the deepest crease of the valley, there is a mountain, and inside the mountain there is a hollow, and inside the hollow lives the gentlest god the Greeks ever imagined. Tonight, you are going to walk down into that valley, all the way down, past the poppies and the murmuring water, into the house that has no door, and you are going to meet him, the Lord of Rest himself. And nothing in this story will hurry you, and nothing in this story will startle you, because nothing in his country ever has. Before we begin the long descent together, let this be the only small task of your night. If these slow journeys help you toward sleep, let a like fall from your thumb as lightly as a leaf. Stay subscribed so the next quiet road can find you. And, if you are still awake enough to manage it, leave a whispered line in the comments, telling us where in the world your bed is tonight and what your clock says there, so that all of us drifting through this same valley can feel how wide the night really is. And now there is nothing more to do, nothing to answer, nothing to hold. Only the road down. You come to the rim of the valley the way sleep itself comes, gradually, and then all at once. Behind you, somewhere impossibly far away, is the daylight world, with its noise and its errands and its bright demanding hours. But here at the rim, the air changes first, before anything else changes. It thickens, it softens, it lies against your skin like felt, like the inside of a woolen sleeve, and every step you take seems to press into it and be held by it, gently, the way a footprint is held by deep moss. The light around you is the strangest and kindest light you have ever moved through. It does not come from anywhere. It has no source and casts no shadow. It is simply a dimness that lets you see, a gray-violet glow like the last minute of dusk, stretched out to last forever. And the old storytellers, trying to describe it, said that the sun never looks into this place at its rising, nor at its height, nor at its setting, so that the valley has never learned what a morning is and has never had to. You begin to walk down, and the first thing you notice, the thing that settles over you before beauty or wonder or anything else, is what is missing. There is no birdsong here. There has never been a rooster in all this country to call up the dawn, because there is no dawn to call. No dog has ever barked in the valley, not once in all the ages of the world. No goose, sharper-eared than any dog, has ever raised its head to sound the alarm. No cattle low, no branches creak, because no wind comes down this deep, and no human voice has ever argued or bargained or wept aloud here. The old account of this place lists all those absences one by one, like a lullaby made out of subtractions, and as you walk, you can feel each one being lifted off you in turn. The alarm that will not ring, the message that will not arrive, the door that will not slam, the voice that will not call your name, all of them set down at the rim of the valley like luggage you were never meant to carry this far. The slope carries you lower, and the mist parts around your knees in slow curls that close again behind you, unhurried, unbothered. And now the ground begins to change under your feet, from stone to soil to something softer, and you look down and see that you are walking on the edge of an enormous field of poppies. They grow before the doorway of the house of sleep, the old poem says. Poppies beyond counting, and countless herbs among them, and here they are, acre upon acre of them, fading away into the dusk, their petals half closed, their heavy seed heads nodding on their stems as though each flower were its own small sleeper, dreaming its own small dream. The air above the field is sweet in a dim, dusty way, like a linen cupboard, like a book left open in a warm room. And you understand without being told that this sweetness is doing something to you, loosening something in you, and that this is allowed, that this is the whole purpose of the field, and that no one has ever crossed it in a straight line or in a hurry. To ancient listeners, this field meant something quite practical, for they knew the poppy well, and knew that from its milk came sleep for the sick and ease for the wounded. And so when the poets planted poppies at the threshold of a god, every farmer and every soldier hearing the tale would nod slowly, understanding that this is where medicine lives. This is the garden that kindness grows from. And the poem goes further. In one of the loveliest images anyone has ever set down, it says that from these herbs, the drowsy night gathers sleep like a harvest and scatters it across the darkened lands. Night herself, walking these rows in the dusk, milking rest from the flowers, filling her arms with it, and then casting it out over the sleeping earth, the way a sower casts grain, so that some of it falls on cities and some on ships far out at sea, and some of it tonight is falling on you, wherever your bed is, drifting down from this very field, this exact one you are walking through now. You cross the poppies slowly, letting your fingertips trail over the closed petals, and now ahead of you, you begin to hear the only sound this valley has ever permitted itself. It is water. Out of the base of the rock, from underneath the mountain itself, a stream slides into the open, and it is unlike any stream in the upper world, because it does not chatter and it does not rush. It moves over its bed of smooth pebbles with a low, continuous murmur, a sound so even and so patient that you cannot hold on to any single moment of it, each ripple releasing the one before it, each soft syllable of water erasing the last. And this, the travelers of myth would tell you, is Lethe, the stream of forgetting, whose gentle voice invites sleep, and whose whole nature is to let things go. You stand beside it for a while, watching it slide past in the dusk, and you notice what its voice is doing inside your own head, how the thought you were just having has slipped away mid-sentence, and how you do not mind, how the next thought rises and dissolves like a ripple, and the next, until thinking itself becomes just another kind of water moving gently away from you, into the dark. Some traditions claim that Lethe runs through the deep underworld, far below even this valley, and that the dead drink from it to lay down their memories before they rest. But here, at the doorstep of sleep, it asks nothing so final of you. Here, it only murmurs. Here you are not asked to forget your life, only to set it down for one night, the way you set down a heavy bag inside your own front door, knowing perfectly well it will be there in the morning, faithful and unchanged, and knowing too that you do not have to hold it while you sleep. The stream says this over and over in its low water voice, says it without words and without effort, and you believe it, and something behind your ribs unclenches by one more degree, and the dusk seems one shade softer than it was. And you turn from the water toward the mountain, because you can feel now that you are very close. The rock rises ahead of you, a deep brow of stone leaning out over its own darkness, and beneath the brow there is the hollow, the cave, the house itself. And even from here you can feel the sleep spilling out of it, the way warmth spills from an open oven door in winter, a slow, invisible tide of drowsiness flowing out over the poppy field and the murmuring stream, and the whole breathing valley, and out beyond the valley too, thinning as it goes, reaching the coasts and the islands and the far cities, reaching all the way, perhaps, to the room where your body is lying right now. This is the source. Every nap in the afternoon shade, every child gone heavy on a parent's shoulder, every sailor rocked under his blanket by the swell, every one of them is downstream of this one dark doorway in the western rim of the world, and you are standing before it, and it is not frightening at all. It is the least frightening place you have ever been, and the door is open because there is no door, and the house is waiting, because it is always waiting, and you step toward the threshold with the poppies nodding behind you, and the water letting go, and letting go and letting go. At the mouth of the cave, you pause, not from hesitation, but from a kind of courtesy, the way you would pause at the edge of a room where someone you love is sleeping, and you look for the door, and there is no door. There has never been a door in the whole of this house. The old poem is very particular about it, and very tender. No door turns on its hinges here, it says, lest a hinge should creak. No gate, no latch, no bar, no key, and no guardian stands at the threshold, because a house that never closes needs no one to open it. Think of that for a moment, in your own drowsy way. Every other house of the gods is defended, walled, gated, watched. The halls of Olympus have their keeper of the seasons at the cloud gate. The underworld has its three-headed hound, but the house of sleep stands open to everything and everyone, forever, and has never once been robbed, because the only treasure in it is rest, and rest cannot be stolen, only received. And everyone who enters here comes for the same reason you have come, and leaves richer, and takes nothing away that the house cannot endlessly give again. So you step through the open threshold, and the dusk of the valley deepens into the softer dark of indoors, and the air changes one more time, growing warmer, closer, quieter still, the thick felt of it now brushed with something like the smell of warm stone and old flowers. And beneath your feet, the floor of the cave is smooth, worn satiny by nothing, by mist, by ages, by the slow traffic of dreams. The murmur of Lethe follows you in, fainter now, a silver thread of sound stitched along the base of the walls, and as your eyes learn the darkness, you begin to see that the darkness is inhabited. The room does not end where a room should end. It opens and opens, the way the inside of your own closed eyes opens when you are falling asleep, and everywhere in that soft interior distance, something is drifting, a slow weather of shapes, and in the middle of it all, on a raised place at the heart of the cave, there is a bed. The bed is carved of ebony, wood so black it holds the darkness the way water holds the moon, and it stands high, draped and canopied with curtains of a dark, uncertain color, the color of sleep itself, neither black nor gray nor violet, but somehow all three at once, and the whole of it is deep in feathers, a mattress of down so soft that the bed seems less made than gathered, like a nest, like a cloud that agreed to stay. And on that bed, at the center of the world's stillness, lies the god. His limbs are loose with rest, poured out across the down like water finding its level. One arm has slipped from the edge of the bed and hangs there, perfectly at ease. His head is sunk so deep in the pillow that the pillow has risen around it like dough, and his eyes are closed, and his breathing is long and slow and even, and he is asleep. Of course he is asleep. He is Hypnos, sleep himself, and this is the oldest and gentlest joke in the whole of Greek myth, told with a straight face by every poet who ever described him. The god of sleep does not watch over sleep the way the sun god drives the sun. He does not administer it or guard it or labor at it. He simply does it, endlessly, magnificently, the one worker in all creation, whose work and whose rest are the same thing. You come closer, quiet as breath, and you look at him for a long time, because it is allowed, because nothing here forbids anything, and you notice how young he seems, and how ancient at once, his face smooth as a boy's, and yet somehow older than the mountain around him. And later, poets added lovely details when they painted him. Small wings at his temples, like the wings of a moth or a dove, stirring faintly with each breath. And in one relaxed hand, some said, a stem of poppies, and in the other, a horn from which sleep could be poured out, drop by drop, over the eyes of the weary world. Whether the wings and the horn are truly there in the dark, you cannot quite say, and it does not matter because the sleep pouring off him is unmistakable, thicker here than anywhere in the valley, a warmth against your face like the warmth of a fire you cannot see, and you feel your own eyelids answering it, growing heavier, sweeter, and you let them, because you are safe here, safer than you have ever been anywhere. And now, in the soft dark around the bed, you let yourself look at the drifting shapes, and you understand what they are. Dreams. The house is full of them, full beyond any counting, and the old poem reaches for harvest words and shore words to say how many? As many as the ears of corn in a field at midsummer, it says, as many as the leaves in the woods, as many as the grains of sand cast up by the sea. They lie and drift and hover everywhere, empty dream shapes, imitations of forms, resting in every hollow of the cave like moths at midday, dreams of flying and dreams of falling gently into feathers, dreams of houses you have never lived in that feel like home, dreams of speaking with someone long absent as though no time had passed at all, dreams that are nothing but a color, or a staircase, or the smell of bread, each one waiting, patient as a seed, for the night, when some sleeper somewhere will need exactly that dream and no other. They part around you as you move, soft as cobweb, cool as petals, and one of them brushes your cheek in passing, and for half a heartbeat, you taste a summer afternoon from a childhood that may not even be yours, and then it drifts on and you let it go, the way Lethe has been teaching you all evening to let things go. One reading suggests that this crowded dimness is the truest picture the ancients ever drew of the sleeping mind itself, the cave as the space behind your own closed eyes, the thousand drifting forms as everything you have ever seen and half forgotten, lying in the hollows of you, waiting to be recombined into the strange soft stories of the night. And if that reading is right, then you have not really traveled to the western edge of the world at all this evening. You have traveled inward, down your own quiet slope, past your own murmuring memory, into your own warm dark, and the God asleep at the center of it is a picture of the very thing your body is doing right now, this loosening, this settling, this long slow pour toward rest. Here is something else worth turning over, drowsily, the way you turn a smooth stone in your pocket. The Greeks made this god a member of the oldest family in existence. Hypnos is the son of Nyx, the night herself, that vast and starry firstborn power whom even Zeus was careful never to offend, and he has a twin brother, Thanatos, who is gentle death. And to the ancient mind, this was not a grim pairing, but a natural one. Two brothers with the same dark hair and the same quiet tread, one of whom takes you for a night and one of whom takes you home. Sleep, they said, is the kinder twin, the one who always gives you back. When the Romans told these same stories, they called him Somnus, and it is under that name that the loveliest description of his house was written. But he is one god under either name, and tonight we will call him Hypnos, as his mother did. And every human family, hearing the tale by lamplight, would have felt the truth of the genealogy in their own bodies, that sleep is night's child, born fresh each evening when the light goes, that rest and endings are brothers, so alike that every falling asleep is a small rehearsal for the last one, and every waking a small resurrection, and that none of this is frightening, none of it, when the mother of the whole dark family is simply Night, who covers everything, and keeps everything, and asks for nothing but this, that you close your eyes and trust her until morning. And already this early in the tale, you might find yourself wondering what such a god is for. The other gods labor and quarrel and steer the world. The smith god hammers, the sea god drives the waves, the gray-eyed goddess weaves strategy like cloth. This one sleeps. He holds no counsel, forges no thunderbolt, builds no city. His whole kingdom is a dim valley, a field of drowsy flowers, a stream that forgets, a bed. It would be easy to call him the laziest of the immortals and smile and move on. But hold the question loosely as your breathing slows, because the whole of tonight's story is the answer to it, and the answer will come, as answers do in this house, softly, and from an unexpected direction, on wings, out of the east, wearing every color that this colorless valley has never seen, while the god sleeps, and the dreams drift, and the water murmurs its endless subtraction. Let a story rise around you the way warmth rises through blankets. A story from long before tonight, because even this stillest of gods has a past, and once, just once or twice in all the ages, he was talked into adventure. It happened in the years of the great war at Troy, when the Queen of Heaven wanted her husband's eyes closed for a while so the battle below might tilt the way she wished, and she could not close them herself, for no one closes the eyes of Zeus. So she traveled to the dim places and found Hypnos and asked him, sweetly, to do the one thing only he in all the universe could do, to lull the king of gods and men. And Hypnos, half hidden in mist, answered her with something almost like fear, which is a remarkable sound in the mouth of the calmest being alive. Any other god, he said, he would gladly put under, even the great streams of ocean, the father of everything. But Zeus he had lulled once before, at her own asking, long ago, and when the king woke and found what had been done while he slept, his anger went through the halls like weather, and he would have hurled sleep out of the sky into the sea and darkness below, had Hypnos not fled to the one refuge that outranks all thrones. He ran to his mother. He hid in the skirts of night, and Zeus, arriving in fury, stopped at the sight of her, and held his hand. For even the Lord of the Thunder was reluctant to do anything displeasing to Night, so ancient is she, and so deep does her authority run. The singers who came after gave that old bargain a warmer ending, for the Queen of Heaven sweetened her second request with a promise. She offered Hypnos a bride, one of the youngest of the Graces, Pasithea, the one whose name the storytellers linked with rest and kindly illusion, with the good relaxing of the body, and Hypnos, who wants nothing and needs nothing, discovered that there was one thing after all that could stir him from his valley, and he made the queen swear it by the waters below, and she swore and he flew. He did his quiet work in the shape of a songbird, hidden in the boughs of a great pine, and the eyes of Zeus went down like the sun. And what matters for us tonight is not the war beneath, which is another channel story and a louder one, but this small glowing fact at the center of it, that sleep is married to a grace, that rest and grace, in the oldest map of the world, live in the same house and share the same bed, and that every night, when your own body finally softens into the pillow, those two are at work together, the loosening and the gift, the letting go and the loveliness of letting go. Scholars remain divided over how to fit that old soldier's tale of Homer's beside the soft western valley we are lying in tonight. For in the war song, sleep lives on the island of Lemnos and moves briskly through the world, striking bargains, taking bird shape, flying to the mountain of the winds, while in the later Roman telling, he cannot so much as lift his head without 3 tries. Some say the poets simply disagreed, as poets do, and others say that both pictures are true at once, the way both pictures of you are true. The daylight self that bargains and travels and takes 100 shapes, and the night self that sinks into feathers and cannot be summoned by anything less than a goddess standing at the foot of the bed. You do not have to settle the question. Nothing has to be settled tonight. The 2 stories drift past each other in the dark of the cave like 2 dreams, and both of them brush your cheek, and both of them move on. And as they move on, notice without any alarm at all, 3 small strange things at the edges of this evening. 3 threads laid down for later. The way a careful weaver lays in colors she will not need until the far side of the cloth. The first is a bird, somewhere above the rim of the valley, higher than any bird of this country should fly, because no bird lives in this country at all. A single small shape crosses the dusk, quick and straight as a thrown stitch, with a flash about it of a blue that does not belong to this gray place, there and gone, and the sight of it tugs at something in you, as though you have seen that particular blue before, in another life by bright water. The second is a sound, or rather the absence under all sounds, the sea. You cannot see any sea from here, and yet once, just once, between 2 murmurs of Lethe, you would swear the whole world goes quiet, the way water goes quiet. An unnatural calm, flat as glass, 7 days wide, as if somewhere the winds have been gathered up and locked away, and the waves told, gently but with authority, to lie still. And the third is the faintest smell of salt on the felt thick air, impossible in this landlocked hollow, arriving and dissolving like a half-formed dream. Keep all 3, bird and calm and salt, folded somewhere loose in your drowsing mind. This house always knows what is coming before it comes. It dreams the future the way you dream the past. For the future is coming, even here where nothing ever changes. It is already on the road, wearing colors. But before it arrives, we must go far from the valley for a while, out east into the daylight world. back when the light was still ordinary and kind, to a small kingdom by the sea called Trachis, and to the two people this whole night is secretly about. Do not worry as we go. You will not be asked to open your eyes any wider, and the road east is downhill all the way, like every road in a dream. There was a king in Trachis named Sex, a man with such brightness in his face that people said his father was the morning star, and they meant it half as genealogy and half as simple description, because there are faces like that, faces the day seems to start from, and he was married to Alcyone, daughter of Aeolus, the keeper of the winds, and the marriage of those two was the kind that myth usually reserves for gods and then regrets giving them. They were, the poets say, devoted beyond the ordinary devotion of kings and queens. He called her his little Halcyon. She could read the weather of him with her eyes closed, the way a keeper's daughter reads the wind, and the small city between the mountains and the water was happy in the unrecorded way that happy places are. Its harbors full, its evenings long, its bedroom lamps going out one by one each night without fear. For the coast dwellers of old, the next turn of the story announced itself the moment the sea was mentioned. For they were a people of coasts and islands who lived and traded and grieved by water. And they knew in their bones what it costs when someone you love steps onto a ship. And so when the tale says that troubling signs began to gather over Trachis, strange portents, a brother lost, omens that needed reading, and that Sakes resolved to sail across the open water to consult the god's oracle at Claros, every listener in every lamplit room drew the same slow breath. Alcyone drew it too. When he told her his plan, the color left her face like tide leaving sand, and she asked him in the way you ask when you already know the answer. What fault of hers had turned his heart? And then, dropping all pretense of argument, she simply told him the truth she carried as the windkeeper's daughter, that she had grown up in her father's house, hearing the winds fight in their prison, that she knew what they did to the sea when they got out, that she had seen, as a girl, the broken planks come ashore and the tombs with no bodies in them. And if he had to go, she said, then let him take her with him, so that whatever the water did, it would do to them together, and the storm she feared would at least be a storm they shared. Hold that request in your mind, gently, because the whole tenderness of this story lives inside it, and the old poet knew it. She did not ask him to be safe, she asked him to be with her. Sakes was moved, the tale says, torn between the journey he believed he owed the gods and the woman he could not bear to endanger, and he chose as travelers have always chosen, with love and error mixed in equal parts. He refused to risk her, and he promised instead, by the bright fire of his father, the morning star, that unless the fates prevented him, he would be home before the moon had twice filled her circle. 2 months. He said it to comfort her, and it did not comfort her, and he sailed anyway. And the story of what the sea did, and of how the news of it traveled, of all places, to the dim valley you are lying in now, to the god asleep on his ebony bed, is the story the rest of this night is made of. But we will take it slowly, at the pace of a tide, because that is how it deserves to be told, and because you are already half asleep, and half asleep is exactly the depth at which this story becomes true. The morning of the sailing was beautiful, which is how the sea prefers to begin these stories. The harbor water lay smooth as poured oil. The crew ran the oars out and drew the ship down the shining road of its own reflection. And Alcyone stood on the pier with her eyes fixed on the stern, where Sakes stood facing back at her. His hand lifted, and the distance between those two raised hands grew by one oar stroke at a time, so gradually that neither of them could have named the moment when it became too far to swim, too far to call, too far to undo. She watched him until his face was a brightness, and then a figure, and then a mark on the mast line, and when the hull itself had melted into the haze, she stayed and watched the sails. And when the sails went below the curve of the world, she went home, walked past the bedroom that was suddenly the largest room she had ever entered, and lay down on his side of the bed, which the poets mention in one line, and every listener who has ever loved feels in the whole body. She lay where his warmth had been, because absence has a geography, and that was its capital. The ship ran well all day, the wind coming up friendly from the quarter, the ropes creaking their small wooden lullabies, and the crew, as crews do, grew easy and talkative as the land sank away. And it was in the middle of the sea, with the shores equally far in every direction, that the water began to whiten. Evening came early, bundled in cloud. The wind stood up, and here, in the old telling, there follows one of the most tremendous storm scenes ever written, wave upon wave, thunder answering thunder. But tonight, we are hearing it from inside the house of sleep, where everything arrives muffled by felt and distance, and so you may watch it the way you watch weather from behind thick glass, warm and held and elsewhere, while the great gray hills of water rise and travel and lean, and the ship climbs them the way a tired walker climbs, slowly, and the rain comes down so heavily that sea and sky give up the border between them. Understand only this much, and softly. The men did everything right, and it was not enough, and there was no malice in it anywhere, no monster, no curse, no angry god steering the bolt, nothing but the oldest truth of water, which is that it is stronger than wood and does not know our names. And Sakes, in the middle of all that ruin, discovered what the poet clearly loved him for, that fear at the end is smaller than tenderness. The tale says that as the ship gave way beneath the men, each one's mind flew to what he treasured, to fathers, to children, to houses with lamps in them, and that Sakes's whole heart held a single name, Alcyone, Alcyone. Her name was in his mouth as the water took the deck, and his one gratitude in the wreck of everything was that she was not there, that she was far away, and dry and breathing. And his one prayer, offered to the waves themselves, since no other altar was in reach, was that the water might be kind enough to carry his body home to her hands, so that even at the end of everything, it would still, in some last way, be him coming back to her. Then the sea closed over the morning star's sun, gently, the way a hand closes over a coin, and the storm, having no one left to argue with, wore itself out through the night, and by dawn the water lay quiet again, and rocked the drifting timbers absently, like someone humming after the song is finished, meaning no harm at all, remembering nothing. Let the picture rest there, hushed, and breathe once, slowly before we turn our faces home. For the sea in this story is not the enemy, and will prove it before the night is out. And the old listeners knew that too. It has been said that the whole tale was told among sailors' families in exactly this spirit, as a story about how the water that takes is the same water that gives back, and that its ending was the reason it was told at all. An ending the coast dwellers could see with their own eyes every winter, hovering over the waves on blue wings. Hold to that, the way you are holding to your pillow. This story knows where it is going. It has always known, and its road home runs of all the roads in the world through the dim valley where a god lies sleeping, and where you, patient traveler, are already lying too. In Trachis, meanwhile, Alcyone was living inside the 2 months of his promise, as though inside a house she was building around herself day by day. She kept count without meaning to, the way the body keeps count, in bread and lamplight and the phases of the moon over the harbor. And she filled the hours with the oldest medicine that waiting has ever had, which is making things. She wove a robe for Sex to wear the day the sails came home, working the shuttle back and through, in a rhythm you know from somewhere deep below your memory, because it is the rhythm your own breathing has settled into while you listen. And she wove a robe for herself to greet him in, choosing the colors slowly, changing her mind, unpicking a border and laying it in again, because when the hands are patient, the heart borrows patience from them, at least until dark. And every day, morning and evening, she burned sweet smoke on the altars of the gods, and above all the gods she prayed to Hera, the queen of heaven, the keeper of marriage, asking always the same 3 things in the same soft order: that her husband be safe, that his heart be unchanged toward her, and that he come home. And 2 of those 3 prayers, the poet says quietly, were already impossible, and the smoke of them rose anyway, day after day, into a sky that did not know how to tell her. There is a particular ache in that image, and the old poem does not hurry past it, and neither will we, though we will hold it gently at candle distance. The ache of love that is still writing letters to an address that no longer exists. She talked to him at night, half aloud, as you do. She planned the meal for his arrival. She turned his cloak pin over in her fingers and put it back exactly where he left it, because moving it felt like admitting something. And the days went through her one by one, quiet, ordinary, terrible in no visible way, until at last even heaven could not watch it any longer. Hera, hearing the same faithful voice rise to her altar every dawn asking blessings for a man already lost, found that she could not keep receiving prayers for the dead as though they were prayers for the living. The sound of it, the poets say, troubled the queen of the wide sky in her high golden rooms. And she resolved that Alcyone must be told the truth, and told it in the one way that could not crush her outright. Not by messenger at the door, not by wreckage on the beach, cold and sudden. By a dream, the truth would be brought to her in her sleep, softened by that whole dim kingdom it must travel through to reach her, carried by hands that could shape even the worst news into something the heart could hold. And for that, there was only one house in all the world to send to, and you know the house. You are lying in it now, listening to its one stream running quietly under everything. So the Queen of Heaven called for her messenger, and here the story fills at last with color. Iris, the rainbow, rose and wrapped herself in her robe of 1,000 hues, the only garment in existence with every color the world owns woven into it at once, and she bent her bright arc across the sky the way she always travels, one foot in the high gold halls, and the other coming down wherever her errand lies. And this time, the far end of the rainbow came down at the edge of everything, at the cloud-wrapped rim of the west, over the country that has never seen the sun. Think of it drowsily, the most colorful being in the universe, descending into the one valley that has no colors at all, brightness itself arriving on an errand of mercy at the house of the dark. The poppies felt her light pass over them and did not open. Lethe glittered once, all along its length, like a thread of silver drawn through cloth, and forgot the glitter immediately, as is its nature, and the mist of the valley parted before her in slow, astonished curls as the goddess of the rainbow walked down through the field, past the stream, to the doorway with no door, and stooped her radiance and went in, where the shapes of dreams beyond counting drifted in the sweet, thick dark toward the ebony bed, where the god of sleep lay dreaming through the ages, about to be woken, insofar as he can ever quite be woken, for the kindest reason anyone has ever woken anybody. You see her come in from your soft place in the dark, and it is one of the loveliest sights this or any story has to offer. The hall fills slowly with her light. It is not like a lamp being carried in. It is like color remembering itself, hue by hue in a place that had politely declined to have any. A blush of rose along the stone, a wash of green in the mist near the floor, gold finding the curve of the ebony bedposts, blue laying itself in a long cool ribbon down the thread of Lethe, and the sleeping dreams stirring everywhere in the glow like moths in the first warmth of a fire, lifting, circling, settling again. The old poem says the sacred house was lit through by the sheen of her garment, and you watch it happen, and you notice that the light does not wake the house so much as the house softens the light, takes the brilliance out of it, and leaves only the color, so that even the rainbow here arrives with her voice already lowered. Iris has to work to reach the bed at all. The dream shapes drift so thick around her that she brushes them from her path with her bright hands, the way you would part hanging vines, or wade through tall barley, shapes of the night crowding her sleeves. And as she comes near the ebony bed, she can feel the place beginning to have its way with her, the felt thick air lying over her shoulders like a robe far heavier than her own, her thoughts going soft and wide at the edges, her errand starting to feel, in the sweetest possible way, optional. This is the little comedy the poet folds into the scene, and it is worth smiling at as you sink. The house of sleep is dangerous to no one, but it is dangerous to every plan. The strongest goddess in heaven can walk in with a message, and if she lingers, she will fold down into the feathers like everyone else, message and all. So Iris keeps her feet, with an effort that has no violence in it, only a swimmer's steady lean against a warm current, and she stands over the god at the center of the stillness, and she speaks. Even her speaking is gentle, because everything here must be. She calls him by his titles, and they are titles no other god in all the bright pantheon can claim, and every one of them lands on you as much as on him, listener, so let them land. Sleep, rest of all things. Sleep, mildest of the gods. Sleep, peace of the heart, from whom care flies, who soothes the bodies of the worn out after hard service and makes them ready again for their labors. That is how heaven itself addresses this god, in the official voice of its own messenger. Not as an idler, not as the least of the family, but as the rest of things, the mending of things, the one power to whom even queens must come when the truth is too heavy to be delivered by daylight. And then she gives him the errand. She tells him of Trachis, and of cakes lost in the wide water, and of Alcyone still weaving robes for a homecoming that cannot happen, and she asks, in Hera's name, that he send a dream to the sleeping queen, a dream wearing her husband's own true form, so that she may learn the truth the only way it can be born, from the face she loves, inside the mercy of sleep. And her message given, Iris turns at once and goes, and the poet tells us exactly why, with the tenderest touch in the whole scene. She could no longer bear the force of the drowsiness. She felt sleep flowing into her limbs like warm water into sand, and she fled up the curve of her own rainbow, back the bright way she had come, before the valley could keep her forever. And the god of sleep begins in his fashion to wake, and his fashion is the fashion your own body knows best of anything in this story. He is heavy. His eyes come open a little way and slide shut, come open and slide shut, and his chin sinks and touches his chest and jolts softly up, once, twice. The drowsy nodding of every student in every warm afternoon classroom in history, of every listener in the last minutes of every long story. The poet, watching a god, has drawn a perfect and affectionate portrait of you, exactly now. At last he manages it, more or less, propping himself on one elbow in the deep feathers, shaking himself loose from himself and even half awake, even sunk to the wrists in down. He understands the errand completely, because kindness does not need to be fully awake to work. And what he does next is the hinge of the whole night, so drift close and watch. He does not go. Of course he does not go. Going is not what he is for. Instead, out of that whole drifting nation of dreams, out of the thousand shapes lying in the hollows of the cave like moths, the Father of Rest calls one particular son. To the audiences of old, what follows was a little map of the country of dreams, drawn by someone who had clearly spent time there. And it is worth unfolding slowly because you are traveling into that country yourself, even as you hear it. The god has 1,000 sons, the poem says, a whole people of dream makers, artificers of the night, and 3 of them are masters of the craft. The first is Morpheus, and his art is people. No one in existence can put on a human being the way Morpheus can. The walk of them, the set of the shoulders, the voice with its exact weather, the words a particular man would choose, and the pauses he would choose between them, the clothes, the small habits of the hands. When someone long absent visits you in a dream and is so entirely themselves that you wake with their presence still warm in the room, that, the Greeks would tell you, was Morpheus working at the height of his powers. The second brother wears 2 names, Iselos among the gods and Phobator among mortals, and his art is every living thing that is not human. He becomes the bird, the beast, the long serpent, the stag on the ridge, the dog that walks beside you through dream after dream, and the third is Phantasos, the strangest and quietest of the 3, whose art is everything that has never been alive at all. Earth and rock and water and tree, the house you dream of standing in, the road, the flood, the mountain, the ship, Between the three of them, you see, they can build the entire world again from the inside, nightly, person and creature and place. And the rest of the 1,000 brothers serve the common people of the earth, while these three, the masters, attend the dreams of kings and queens, and tonight their work is a queen indeed. Later poets and painters could never leave those three alone and made of Morpheus, over the centuries, almost a god in his own right, until his name settled into the very medicine that eases pain, morphine, named for the shaper of dreams, and settled into our idiom too, so that to this day the whole sleeping world is said to rest in the arms of Morpheus. And it is worth a drowsy smile that of all the mighty names of Olympus, the ones that lasted longest in the mouths of ordinary people belong to this dim, quiet family of the valley, the ones who never fought anyone, never punished anyone, and only ever came to us at night on soft wings to show us faces we missed. But that is the far future. Tonight, in the cave, the choosing is simple, and the god propped on his elbow in the feathers makes it without hesitation. The errand needs a husband's face, a husband's voice, a husband's exact and irreplaceable way of standing in a doorway. And that is human work, the finest and most delicate there is. And so it is Morpheus, the eldest craft of the house, who rises from the drifting dark and shakes the sleep from his wings and stands ready. And his father, his errand given, does the only thing this god has ever done at the end of a scene, and the poem loves him for it, and so do you. He lets his heavy eyes go closed and sinks back into the deep down of the ebony bed and folds back under into his own soft dark, his work complete, having never left his pillow. And the house settles around his breathing, and the one wakeful thing in all the valley now is a single dream with a long journey ahead of him. And the night, which has been holding its breath, lets it out slowly and turns toward the sea. Morpheus goes out through the doorway with no door, and the poppy field feels him pass over it like a shadow of a shadow. And then he is up out of the valley and flying east through the night on wings that make no noise whatsoever, wings the poem describes with one perfect word. He flies through the darkness on wings that make no sound, a flicker of deeper dark against the dark, crossing the sleeping sea. Look down with him as he goes, since tonight you are drifting in his current. The water below lies calm after its storm, black and silver, breathing in long swells. Here and there a late ship carries its one small lamp like a firefly cupped in two hands. The islands pass beneath, each with its handful of sleeping houses, its dogs curled at thresholds, its banked fires ticking softly toward morning, and over every roof. If your eyes were dream sharp, you would see them. The lesser brothers, the 1,000 ordinary dreams of the world descending and rising all night, like slow snow that falls upward as easily as down. This is the nightly commerce of the house you have just left. This is what the sleeping earth looks like to the ones who tend it. And through that gentle traffic, one master craftsman flies straight as the stitch of blue you saw at the valley's rim toward one particular town, one particular house, one lamp long since gone out, one woman asleep at last on her husband's side of the bed. In Trachis, Morpheus folds his wings on the windowsill and enters the quiet room. And there he does the thing he alone in the universe does perfectly. He puts on sex, not a mask of sex, not a likeness. He takes on the man entire, and the poem is unflinching and tender at once about what that means. He wears the face as it is now, pale as the sea's own privacy, the beard heavy with salt water, the hair dripping, because the mercy of this dream will not be a lie, and Hera's whole intent was truth, truth carried in the gentlest possible hands. And he leans over the bed where Alcyone sleeps, and in Saix's own voice, the voice with its exact weather, the voice she could have picked out of 10,000, he speaks to her softly, the way news should always be broken, and almost never is. "Do you recognize your sex?" he asks her. "Or has death changed my face? Look at me, dearest, and you will know me. Not your husband any longer, but your husband's shade. The storm took me in the middle sea," he tells her gently, unhurried. "Your name was on my lips as the water came, and it was the last thing I said, and I did not suffer it alone, for you were with me in that word. And then the heart of the message, the reason all of heaven and all of the dim valley have labored through this night. Stop waiting, love. Rise and weep for me, he says. But do not let me go down to the shadows unmourned and unmet. Give me your tears instead of your hoping, for hoping is the only cruelty left in your house, and I am sending it away. She reaches for him in the dream, and her own crying wakes her, and she comes up out of sleep with his name in her mouth, exactly as his last word had been hers. The two names crossing somewhere over the dark water like two birds. The servants come with lamps. There is no one in the room, and Alcyone, Windkeeper's daughter, reader of weather, does not doubt for one instant what she has seen, because the dream had salt in its hair. It was him, she says. That was no stranger wearing him. I knew the very look of him. I knew his voice. He stood there where you are holding the lamp. And when the first gray light comes, she goes down, as she has gone down every day of these 2 months, to the shore, to the place on the breakwater where she stood to watch the sails leave. And she stands there saying quiet broken things to the morning. Here he kissed me. Here the rope was cast off. Here I watched him grow small. And then, out on the water, she sees something being carried in by the swell, something the sea is bringing. Slowly, with a strange and unmistakable care, the way you carry a full cup across a room. She watches it come, her heart doing what hearts do, refusing and knowing at once. And as it comes nearer, she sees that it is a man, and nearer still, borne up on a wave as though the water itself were holding it out to her. And it is him, it is Sakes, come home exactly as he prayed in the wreck that he might come, back to her sight, back to her hands, the sea-keeping, to the letter. The only promise anyone made in this whole story that could still be kept. What happens next happens fast in the poem and slow in the heart. And tonight, we will take it at the heart's pace, because it is not a loss, it is the mending, and you may trust it completely. Alcyone runs. She runs along the breakwater toward the water that holds him, and she leaps, and the old poet gives us the miracle in the space of a single astonished line. She leaps, and she does not fall. The air catches her. Wings have come from somewhere. Wings where her arms were reaching, and instead of striking the water, she is skimming it, brushing the tops of the waves. A bird? A small bright seabird, blue as a stitch of summer sky drawn through gray cloth, and the cries she is crying come out changed, turned by her new throat into the thin, sweet, complaining calls that fishermen still hear along winter shores. And she flies to him, to the quiet body the sea is holding, and lands upon it, and folds her new wings, and with her slender beak she touches his cold lips. The poem says, trying to kiss him, and whether he could feel it, or whether it was only the wave moving his face, the ancients themselves could not decide, and did not want to. Because the gods, watching, at last did the kind thing. They were moved, the story says, all of them together at the sight of that love with nowhere left to live, and so they gave it somewhere to live. Sakes stirred under her wings. His body lightened, gathered, changed. Feathers where the salt had dried, wings where his arms had been, and he rose from the water that had taken him, alive again in the one form the sea can never drown. And the two of them flew up together into the young morning light, two kingfishers over the harbor of Trachis, and the story that began with a hand raised on a pier ends with no distance between them at all. They are together still. That is not a figure of speech. It is the plain claim of the myth and the daily testimony of every coast in Greece. The love outlasted, the mating held. The two birds keep to one another season upon season, and they rear their young, the poem says, upon the winter sea itself, in a nest that rides the water for 7 calm days. And the name the Greeks gave the halcyon is Alcyone's own name, worn like a wedding ring in the language ever since, so that every time anyone anywhere speaks of halcyon days, they are, whether they know it or not, telling this whole story in 2 words: the storm and the waiting, the dream with salt in its hair, the leap that became flight, and the calm that heaven grants, each year to one faithful pair of birds and to everyone else fortunate enough to be sharing their sea when it comes. And here the last thread of the story comes home to the family it started from, quietly, the way the shuttle comes home at the end of a row. Alcyone, remember, was the daughter of Aeolus, the keeper of the winds, the man who grew rich in the one currency her story would come to need. And the myth says that for her sake, each year in the deep of winter, when the Halcyons build their floating nest and brood their eggs upon the open water, her father gathers in his children. For 7 days, some say 14, he calls the winds off the sea and shuts them in their mountain, and sets his own watch on the door, and the waves, with nothing left to argue with, lie down. And the sea that once could not be trusted with one ship becomes, for that little sacred while, so still that a nest can ride on it, so calm that new life can be kept warm on the very water, and sailors for 100 generations planned their winter crossings around that promised stillness, and called those days the Halcyon days, the days of the Kingfisher, the world's annual proof that even the wildest thing in creation can be gentled, for love's sake, on a schedule you could set your heart by. And now you know where you have felt that stillness before, because you felt it hours ago at the rim of the valley, between two murmurs of Lethe, the unnatural calm, flat as glass, 7 days wide. The House of Sleep was dreaming this ending before the story ever reached it. The stitch of impossible blue over the colorless valley was this same small bird, and the ghost of salt on the felt-thick air was this same forgiven sea, and the omens you folded away in your drowsing mind at the start of the night have all come back to roost, softly, like birds settling into a nest that floats. So let the whole tale lie still on the water for a moment, and, with the last of your waking attention, hold it up against the question we left open in the cave, back when the night was young. What is he for, this god who does nothing? The smith hammers, the sea god drives his horses, the queen of heaven governs and grieves and intervenes, and Hypnos sleeps in a valley at the edge of everything. And it would be so easy to say that the world could do without him. But look, drowsily, at what actually happened tonight, at the road the mending took. Heaven itself could not tell Alcyone the truth. Hera had the power to end the false hope, but not the gentleness to hand it over whole. And so the strongest beings in the universe carried the heaviest news of the story to the door of the sleepiest, and asked him, please, to take it from there. The truth that would have broken her on the daylight pier was carried instead into her sleep, and inside sleep it could be held and heard and wept over and survived. And everything that came after, the shore, the leap, the wings, the calm, every feather of the ending grew out of one dream sent from one dim cave by a god who never lifted his head from his pillow. That is what he is for. Rest is not the absence of purpose. Rest is the place where the unbearable is made bearable, where the day's unfinished grief is taken out of our hands and worked on by older, softer craftsmen while we lie still. The world does not need Hypnos in spite of the fact that he does nothing. It needs him because someone, somewhere, must be doing nothing perfectly, so that the rest of us have somewhere to lay everything down. To the ancients, this was not a paradox, but a daily observance, and one old way of taking the whole myth makes it almost a set of household instructions, that comfort is not the opposite of duty, but the ground it grows back from, that the hero and the sleeper are the same person on different hours of the clock, and that heaven keeps on permanent staff a whole family whose only task is your night, which is a strange and lovely thing for a warrior culture to have insisted on, and they did insist. Mildest of the gods, their poets called him, rest of all things, peace of the heart. The words were in the sky's own mouth. And you, lying in his house at the end of the story, are the proof the argument was always pointing to. Because look at you. The day you brought down into this valley, with its noise and its unfinished business, has been out of your hands for a long while now, being worked on softly, somewhere behind the curtains. So we will go back the way we came, without hurrying, because the way home from this valley is simply deeper in. Back past the ebony bed, where the god lies, as he has always lain, poured out in the feathers, his moth-winged temples stirring, his breathing the tide the whole house rocks on. If any of tonight has troubled the dreams around him, it does not show, for the shapes drift as they have always drifted, thick as ears of corn, soft as leaves, many as sand, and somewhere among them tonight there is one dream with salt in its hair, home from its errand, folded back into the dark hollows with its 1,000 brothers, resting until someone, somewhere, needs a beloved face brought to them gently in the night. Perhaps it will be your night, some night. It would know the way to you now, back past the murmur of Lethe, which has never stopped, which underlay the storm and the weaving and the wings and the calm the whole time you were away in the story, one low silver syllable after another, each one letting go of the last, and you let the story itself begin to go the way everything goes in that water. Not lost, only set down, the details loosening first, the names, the order of things, until what remains is not a tale but a temperature, a warmth behind the ribs, a blue stitch of bird over calm water. And that is enough. That was always the part you were meant to keep. Out through the doorway that has no door, which will not creak behind you, because nothing here has ever creaked. And across the field of poppies, nodding their heavy heads over their own small dreams, where the drowsy night is walking her rows again, gathering sleep into her arms like a harvest, and scattering it out over the darkened lands, over the coasts and the islands, over the winter sea lying flat and faithful around one floating nest, over your town, your street, your roof, this room, and up one last slow time to the rim of the valley, where the dusk thins toward the ordinary night, your own night, the one outside your window now. And there you can stop, because you do not have to travel any further to be home. You are already lying in it. The stars are where you left them. The sea, wherever your nearest sea is, lies calm tonight, or calm enough, and somewhere on it or above it, if the old story can be believed, 2 small birds are keeping close together in the dark, as they have kept for 3,000 years. The house behind you stands open, as it always stands, no door, no hinge, no key, and the God inside it is doing his endless perfect work, which is rest, which is yours now too. Your breath has gone long and slow and even like his. Your thoughts are water moving gently away. Whatever you carried down into the valley this evening will keep until morning, faithful and unchanged, inside your own front door. Let the night hold it. Let the night hold you, the way the winter sea holds the nest, the way the feathers hold the God, the way the dark holds the stars softly, all the way down, until sleep, mildest of the gods, rest of all things, peace of the heart, comes out from his own doorway at last and crosses the poppies and finds you and stays.